I don't often get to make Halloween adjacent material during October, but ever since a collaboration I did with Wally a few years back, there's been a PC horror title that I've been meaning to cover in more detail. Well, at least more detail than a 1 to 2 minute guest spot. And that game is called Terror T.R.A.X, Track of the Vampire. This was not an easy game to track down. My first, and until a few years ago, only memory of this game was watching it played in a friend's basement just one time. But that one time was enough to burn it into my memory. Long enough to still want to check it out over 20 years later. And then the whole thing just turned out to be on Internet Archive the whole time. But could an FMV horror title from the mid-90s even still be considered playable by any modern standards? Well, let's hit the lights, boot up Windows 3.5, and have a look together.
Looks like we got some incoming, so heads up. And remember one thing, pal. The life you're risking is mine. Later.
Terror T.R.A.X is a PC game that puts you in charge of operatives working for the organization T.R.A.X. Trace, research, analyze, and exterminate. Because of the 90s. It's a game I really don't see a lot of discussion for, and when I do, it's rare. More rare than one would expect from a place like YouTube anyways. That might have a bit to do with the changes in ownership since the game's original release back in 1995. Terror T.R.A.X was developed by a company called Ground Zero Productions and published by TSR, which stood for Tactical Studies Rules. TSR used to be the publisher of tabletop RPG games through the 70s, 80s, and 90s. They had everything from Marvel RPGs, Indiana Jones, Buck Rogers, and, most importantly, Top Secret SI? Oh my god, my first actual tabletop! Oh, we used to go back to my buddy Grant's place after school, set up in this basement pool table, and... simpler times. Anyways, TSR was bought out by Wizards of the Coast in 1997, where the license appears to have stayed since. While corporate mergers can be a bitch for sure, what kind of game actually got buried here? Well, let's... dig it up and have a look.
This doesn't look good. I'm in here. You gotta stop him. You gotta stop him.
The operatives you'll be in charge of are experts on the undead, hand-to-hand combat, weapons, and covert operations. Well, mostly. But the point is, they can do just about anything. Except make decisions for themselves. That's going to be your job. You'll be following each agent as they help keep the city safe from the undead that roam the night. And you'll perform this most dangerous of tasks by either pressing A or B. Okay, at a glance, your role in this does seem pretty limited, but trust me, you do not want these agents making decisions for themselves. The AI that acts as your guide throughout the game even warns you against this.
If you do not select an option in time, the officer will select his own. I do not recommend this.
So yeah, at its core, this game is basically an FMV version of a choose-your-own-adventure novel. Although it's not always a simple matter of one choice moves you forward and one choice means game over. Your choices can lead to more clues to help in your investigation, take you to various locations around the city, or lead to new encounters with new characters, including, of course, vampires. The branching paths can lead to some wildly different outcomes for your agents. More than I was expecting for an obscure mid-90s FMV title. And on your first playthrough of each scenario, there is no obvious choice. Every time I thought I was doing the sensible thing,
Either he's just charging or oh my god!
You'll need to figure things out through trial and error for the most part, but the presentation makes the experience worth coming back to. You can also press F to skip if you get too tired of a scene though, which is nice. So while the gameplay is most definitely limited, it still feels like a precursor to what we would get in games like Until Dawn and the Dark Picture series. Speaking of which, both series have one very obvious love in common. I've been making an effort not to use the words B-movie during this video, but it's really hard to avoid that description when it fits this well. The entire game is presented in video format, save for the early CGI used for your AI guide. Even though the presentation is obviously more low budget, the limited POV actually does a lot to add to the atmosphere and the suspense. So I guess another way to view this game could be as found footage horror but with QuickTime events. And that same limitation usually lends itself very well to both formats in the scares department, so it feels like a good choice. But you've also got to consider the era, I suppose. The time this game was made wasn't very far off from when the original Twisted Metal was filming all of those live-action endings. And yes, I know they were scrapped, but I will always contend that that decision was a mistake. Anyways, the cheese is in high supply here. And it's got the guy who played Motaro in Mortal Kombat Annihilation, so there's that. Also, the other agent you're controlling is someone I've never heard of before, but she has an intimidating resume. Oh. Also, the AI may have been the scariest part of this game for me. The emotionless way she spoke was already a bit unnerving, but I got outright chills after my first game over.
Your command of T.R.A.X has been an abject failure. You wasted the lives of 2 officers and failed to capture or terminate either the succubi, hemos, or sugs. You are finished here. We will be watching you. If you divulge any knowledge of T.R.A.X or our activities, you will be exterminated.
It really makes you feel like you're stuck in a dangerous, high-stakes situation, all while working for an organization who might be as dangerous as the monsters you're trying to hunt. Too bad almost nobody I know has ever even heard of it. The real downside to Terror T.R.A.X is that it's not the easiest game to come by these days, which I guess shouldn't be too surprising considering the format and the time it came out. Not every game with full motion video has been preserved the way Night Trap has. Hell, I had to find a way to run Windows 3.1 on my Windows 10 PC just to have a chance to play this again. Apparently, you can get a better image with more color if you run it on Windows 95 though. There were apparently a series of audio-only follow-ups, but Track of the Vampire appears to be the only one ever made with a full video presentation. I was only able to find a few loose copies via eBay and Amazon, but you could always check out the Internet Archive if you're feeling spicy about it. It's a task, but if you're willing to put in the time and have a fondness for FMV games and B horror flicks, I definitely recommend checking this one out. It's good for at least a few hours of entertainment if you play in the right kind of environment, and remember to skip over the repeat cutscenes and the replays. The acting is cheese and over the top, it's got some great horror elements, and it feels like some real thought and effort went into making this game. At least production-wise. Terror T.R.A.X actually scared me as a kid. Maybe it'll scare you too. Hey everyone, thanks for watching and for sticking it out until the end of the video. We've got a lot more on the way that we're really excited to share with all of you. But in the meantime, if you want to help us out, you can do the usual YouTube things. Liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing, all of it makes a huge difference over here. And let us know what you thought about Terror T.R.A.X in the comments below. This is Tim from Haruokay, and until next time, stay tuned.